back to another video here at Jade's Garage. In the previous video, I was showing how I was stripping down the Jade Mustang, the 68 Mustang Coupe that I've been working on for a long time. And I was talking about some things that I needed to take care of while I was doing that video. One of those was this hole that has been cut out in the passenger side door. And this was done by the previous owner. Obviously it had some rust here, which is always a concern. And he had cut this out, but never finished it. Now I've already done this repair on the driver's side door, but at this point, I was suggesting that I was going to spray this with epoxy primer and repair it later. But why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense. So now that I've thought about it, I'm just going to do the repair on this and of course apply epoxy afterwards. So basically, this was cut out. It was not very straight. I tried to clean it up a little bit, but down here at this edge, he cut it very close to the edge. There's still the rolled flange that you would normally have, with the door skin. But I have to be careful when I do this. I can't go any further or else I'll cause problems. Now, I've already treated this with some navel jelly that you see up here on the door. And basically the way that works is you apply the navel jelly, let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and then rinse it out with water, which I have already done that. I did it yesterday. And I blew this all out with air, let it dry overnight. And now what I want to do is do some more prep work on this. So I plan to spray just some primer down inside here to try to cover up, this material. And then I will build the patch panel. And I'll go through those steps and weld it on. And I'll probably have to add weld through primer on these edges because it's going to sit on the inner structure for the door. So let's get started. So now you can see what I was talking about. He cut it very close to the edge down here, and there's a bit more of a gap here, and it's kind of wavy. So I don't want to try to cut any more of this off. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I'm going to have to make a patch that's going to fit this very close. Now the first thing I want to show you is the thickness of the door skin. I've already measured it. It's kind of hard to get in here with this, but I did a measurement and it came out around 30 thousandths of an inch. So it was around 30 thousandths. It's just really hard to get in there and get a precise measurement because you just can't get the tool in very far. So what I'm going to do is I have this patch panel. I'll say patch panel. What it is, it's actually a trunk drop-off panel that I'm not even sure where it came from, but I've been using it, you can see, for patches. I've just cut it up various times. And this panel is also 30 thousandths, actually a little bit over. It's like 33 thousandths thick. So it's an ideal panel for making this patch, and I'm probably going to use this section right here up in the front to make an easy fix. Now of course I haven't sprayed paint yet, and what I want to do is make a pattern. And what I have here is a leftover box from the gloves that I wear all the time. So there's a couple ways you can do this. One would be to trace this with a powder. You could use probably the guide coat. You could maybe even use some water, put on top of this. There's various ways to do this, but the idea is that you want to get a form or a shape so that you can cut it out. Now you could also, and I'm just going to try this and see if it works, is just apply pressure to the edges to give me the shape that I want. Now an old school trick that if you were using, like making gaskets for a water neck, for on an engine where you'd be putting in a thermostat, you'd coat it with a little bit of oil, make an impression, and then you could cut it out and make your pattern. I don't want to put any oil on this. That would be a bad thing. So by doing this, and I don't want to move this around. Once I get the angle set, I'm not going to lift this off until I feel comfortable with the lines that it creates. And you could also use a piece of paper if you wanted to, but now I can see, it's hard to see in the camera, but I can see there's a crease that runs all the way around. If I had some good shadowing, I could probably show you, but at least I have a pattern that I can follow now with my scissors. So I'm going to cut this out, and that's going to give me a template. I didn't have the exact definition that I wanted, so I took a Sharpie and I just real quickly applied, Sharpie to the edge right here. And once I had, the upper line was easy, but I put some Sharpie on and then pressed this down and transferred, and then I did it also on this side. So now I have a pretty accurate template for the patch that I'm going to need. And of course, now I'll have to transfer that to the other panel. So as you can see, I put my template on top of the panel and I traced it out with a silver Sharpie. Now, when I cut this, I don't want to cut that line all the way off and try to make an exact copy of this. I'd rather cut it a little bit big and then take a sanding disc and shape it as I try to fit it into the hole. So just keep that in mind. You never want to try to cut it perfectly on the first shot. Cut a little big, trim it down to size. Now, of course, there's a couple different ways you can cut this. I'm going to show you one that you could use. It's just some tin snips, and obviously, take your time and make your cuts. But I'm going to cut it with the tin snips and just get this one flange off of the end here. There we go. That's better. I was going the wrong way. So that takes care of that side. Not too bad. Maybe I can cut this corner and get it moving. Now, the other way that I want to cut this is with my cutoff wheel that I have. So I'll put on some hearing protection and safety glasses and cut this section off. The cutoff wheel I'm using is one of these Bad Dog diamond discs. So we'll just make a cut with that. I'll be honest, this isn't nearly as fast as the 4.5 inch diamond disc that I use on my electric grinder. So I'll make this cut. It's going to take a little bit, but I'm going to still use this. Kind of disappointing. That's taking too long. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to do this a whole different way. I'm just going to see if I can cut this off closer to the edge here. Now that I've done that, straighten this out a little bit, I will cut back the other way where I've already started. That's much more efficient, don't you think? There we go. That's better. Let me trim this down just a little bit. Just a little. Okay, so it's close. You know, this line's good. I can see I have to take a little bit more off this edge and a little bit off of this edge as well. Not surprised, you know, that's why you cut it a little big. So I'll trim this down a little bit. And then I'll come back and take a sanding disc and do the rest of the shaping. So you know how it is, you get one section to fit and you work the other parts into it. But it's getting close. That's pretty close. I like it. So it fits very nice. The only other thing that'll have to happen, if I can get this back out of here, is the door has a subtle curve to it. So you kind of want to give it a little bit of that curve, you know, as well, and follow that shape, because even though it's a patch, it needs to try to mimic that curve. Now this metal will bend pretty easily and it doesn't take much. So I give it a little bit of a pre-curve and set it in place, and then I can press it down whenever it's time to weld, and it'll already have a you know, somewhat of a shape to it. At this point I'm very happy with this, and what I'll do is I want to apply some, you know, paint down inside here. It'll just be basically primer. I'll spray that down in, let it dry, and prep the outside of this, and of course this piece. I don't want to remove any of this material inside. I'm not going to mess with that, but I will clean up these edges a little bit more and get them ready for the welding process, and take care of this door, you know, make it nice. So as you can see, I have applied some primer inside here. I let it dry overnight so that, you know, wouldn't cause any problems. And now what I want to do is prep these edges so that I can get it ready for welding. So all I'm going to do is take a sanding disc and just knock down or knock off the black paint that's on the surface. Now, of course, as I said, I'm going to leave the material on the back side of this, but I need to break the edges so that I can get it ready for welding. I will probably do a little bit on these edges as well, because I'll hit it with some weld-through primer, but just doing prep work. I might as well just take all of this off because it's going to come off anyway. That'll work. The weld through primer I'm using is weld through 2 from 3M. 05917 is the part number. I'm going to put a little bit on these edges on the back side here. And set that aside, let it dry. And then what I want to do is set it into place, and I'll just do a spray over of the whole thing. And let that dry. All right, everything's dry. So I want to get this in place. And as I weld this, this is sitting a little bit higher than the door skin. So I'll push this down just a little bit as I tack it in place. And again, I'm not looking for an absolute perfect fit or finish, because it's still going to require some filler on top. So I just want to get it welded in and make it solid. Now, I don't like the way this one is kind of drawn in a little bit, so I'm going to take a sander and try to break that weld loose and see if I can't get this section to come up just a little bit right here. Sometimes you just weld it a little too good. It doesn't want to come loose. Well, I'll do more harm than good, so I'll just continue. Now here's an observation for you. It's sputtering a little bit, and part of that is because of the weld through primer, and that's how it is sometimes. It doesn't always do exactly like you expect it to. And another thing I want to point out is on these edges here, I'm real careful with trying to get heat in this middle section because I don't want to warp this. But out here, it's a little bit different because it's not really going anywhere. This can't really deform, but I still want to take my time and be cautious. Good bit of heat in there. So I blended down those welds, let it cool a little bit, and I'll just keep on adding tacks around and around. It'll be an ongoing process. I've got to let this cool and then come back. Cool, come back. So I'll keep it going, but you'll see as I move along, I'll do a little bit more. All right, you get the idea. I'm going to continue to go around this and get all these welded in, blend it down again, and then we'll have another look at it. And I want to point out something too. It may not be that obvious, but I'm not just freehanding this with one hand. You know, I have my left hand sitting here for a couple of reasons, but one is to act as a stabilizer, so that as I'm doing this, I can use my thumb to control this movement. Just helps it keep it stable and, you know, work to a flat edge, let's say. Okay, I wanted to show you this. You know, when you're welding this stuff together, it's not always going to go perfect. There may be, you know, too much heat or too much deflection or whatever. And, you know, when I was earlier trying to figure out this little section up here that I'd welded and I was sanding on it, it was a little bit low and it bothered me. I didn't like it being low, even though I know it was just not even 1/8 of an inch, really. But it bothered me. And I thought, well, you know, I know there's another way to remedy that. And I thought I would show you what I'm doing, because it's important that you know this, not only, you know, for your project, but to know that even when I'm doing some things, I'm not trying to hide stuff from you, you know, to show that everything's perfect, because it's not. So it had a little bit of a low spot right here. What I did, I took a Ziz wheel, as I call it, or a 5-inch cutoff wheel, one of these, and I cut a slit, basically exactly where the weld was. And then a piece of this little scrap metal, I welded it on, and with that, you know, and I don't recommend using necessarily a slide hammer, you know, because that's too much for this little piece of metal. But just in pulling on this a little bit, I'm able to get this back up to where I want it. And even if you were trying to get it a little bit tighter, you could pull up and take a screwdriver and kind of massage it just a little bit to get those flanges to line up better. This is just another technique that you can use to help reduce the amount of body filler that is going to go on this. Now, another thing that I want to show you is this steel rule. Rather, you know, flexible. I don't even know where I got this. Might have been Harbor Freight or something. But you can take this and lay it across the door panel and slide it across and see where your low spots are. You know, so as you're putting things together. And there's nothing wrong with going backwards. You know, if you have a problem, go ahead and address it so it doesn't come back and haunt you later. But if I take this and I slide it across, it'll show me, you know, any kind of low spots. So at this point, you know, I'm pretty satisfied with how this is laying out. Everything else is welded okay, you know, came together. But I know it's going to take filler anyway, but I'm just showing you. You can take this and get a look at, you know, any kind of low areas and try to address that as necessary. So there's very little gap under this now, but there's still going to be something. You know, there's always going to be some filler that you have to add. So anyway, just thought I'd share that with you. Now what I want to do is finish tacking this back together where I'd cut it open, and then I'll cut this piece off and just blend it smooth. I should point out there's a little hole right here. How that got here, I don't know, but I need to fill that hole too. So I'm going to take my time and stitch that back together, and when I finish, I'll show you the end result. So there it is. Now, you know, I still have a little bit of deflection here, just a little tiny bit of a dip. It doesn't even feel like 1/8 of an inch. I mean, it's just there. It's noticeable, and that's not uncommon. You know, you're never going to get it perfect. You know, I'll say that, but you know, a little bit of filler is going to take care of that. Now, this is just one way to fix this. You know, I wanted to continue with what had happened here where the previous owner had cut this, you know, corner out. But another way you could do this is to make an oversized patch and then roll the flanges. And that way you only have one weld line, and you can just do some tacks on the backside. So there's an alternative for you. But like I said, I wanted to finish up the way this one was. And the next step will be getting this in epoxy, and I'm also doing a little bit of prep work on the car itself, on the roof. I've got to sand down some filler that's on top, but that'll be the next step. There are a few little pits, very minor, and I'd rather have those filled with epoxy and then add filler on top of that. So the little weld hole that was here, or little hole, welded that shut, blended it smooth, and I think it's going to work out just fine. So there you can see. All right, so that's going to be the end of this video. You know, this is not the easiest thing to do. Welding sheet metal like this in an open area is always going to want to pull down. So, you know, you might be able to add a piece of copper behind it, or even a thick piece of aluminum or something to help keep the heat from, you know, drawing it down. But ultimately you have to take your time, do little stitch welds, walk away, let it cool down, you know, don't get in a hurry. And like I said, I could have made a big piece to go around the inner door shell itself and only had one weld line, but out here, you know, this is easier to weld because it's nice and thick. I did have some bubbling issues because of, you know, the paint that's in there and you know, causing it to burp out a little bit, let's say. So I did grind that down and re-weld those spots to make it smooth. Like I said, this is going to go into epoxy next, and from there, you know, of course, it'll get some filler to take care of it. And again, I'd rather work on this door, an original door, than the aftermarket stuff. We all know how poorly those fit and the issues you can have, so I'd rather work on this and try to save it. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. My numbers are getting close to 40,000, which is awesome. So if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, and I'm going to keep on putting out videos. I'm trying to do at least one a week, if not two, and then doing my live stream on Monday night at 7, and then I've been doing one on Wednesday at 3 p.m. for people that are in Europe, you know, so they can get on the stream and have some conversation. That's been great. Have had a great following on that. But you know, if you haven't check it out, and maybe you'll like it or learn something as well. So again, thanks for watching, and until next time, well, wash your hands, but more importantly, take care of yourself and take care of your families. See you. I didn't quite have the definition that I wanted, so what I really found myself able to is I'm not going to go for a perfect fit right off the money, you know, right off the shot here, of the end here. And of course, it's going to fight me. So. You know, it's in a small area. Now, if you can to rebuild or replace, you know, it's even harder than doing